ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Saturday, the 4th of September, and a beautiful day out in Brisbane after a little bit of rain and drizzle which we had. So it's wonderful to have your company on this Saturday in the weekend edition of the Daily India Report, and of course the news update of what's happening here locally. And that's locally, but first of all, we'll go to Auckland, where that attacker and that attack, well, one of the things that's been said about the attacker is that he was known to the authorities. Let's take a look at that report first.
Terror in the suburbs of Auckland.
Oh, bro! Oh, no!
This video captures the moments after 6 members of the public were viciously stabbed in their local grocery store.
This was a violent attack. It was senseless, and I am so sorry it happened.
The Prime Minister confirmed it was a terrorist attack by a man well known to counter-terror police. He was being monitored even up to the moment he grabbed a knife inside the store and attacked shoppers.
What happened today was despicable. It was hateful. It was wrong.
Officers who'd been tracking him moved within seconds of his attack.
When he approached them with the knife, he was shot and killed.
Authorities wouldn't identify the man but say he was inspired by Islamic State and had been on a terror watch list for the last 5 years.
Was carried out by an individual, not a faith, not a culture, not an ethnicity, but an individual person who was gripped by ideology that is not supported here.
Paramedics were called to assist 6 people injured in the attack, 3 in a serious condition.
This woman come out, she was stabbed in the arm. I was going in to help.
And then we all went to little rooms where people were hiding behind shelves.
There was so many police around, it was chaos. It was total chaos.
The Sri Lankan national arrived in New Zealand in 2011. Local media are reporting prosecutors had sought to charge him for planning a terrorist attack last year.
The attacker has been through the court system for several years now and has been monitored by the police since about 2015, I think, for posting objectionable material on the internet, ISIS-related material, which was very violent.
There was nothing to prevent him being in the community, and we were doing absolutely everything possible to monitor him, and indeed the fact that we were able to intervene so quickly in roughly 60 seconds shows just how closely we were watching him.
They believe the man was a lone actor and are calling for calm in a country that is no stranger to terror. Josh Bavis, ABC News.
Well, that news update coming from the Auckland, and it is rather disturbing, but we will see how it progresses. Well, of course, all we know that as he ran to the police with the knife, police had to shoot him down. But right now, Australia has secured 4 million Pfizer doses, and that is some good news.
From Singapore to Sydney, with 500,000 Pfizer doses on board. More ammunition in Australia's fight against COVID-19, with more on the way.
From Downing Street to Down Under.
The UK is sending 4 million Pfizer doses to Australia, doubling our September supplies.
Planes on the tarmac now. We'll be leaving tomorrow.
If Australia was genuinely first in the queue, we wouldn't need to be doing swaps to bring forward vaccine supply.
Australia will return the favour, sending 4 million doses back to the UK in December. By then, it's hoped we will have reached, even surpassed, those key vaccine thresholds.
This really does break the back of it.
But the national plan to reopen is still facing resistance in the COVID-free states.
I want to preserve our lifestyle.
The Queensland Premier's indicated she'll keep her border closed for as long as possible, raising new concerns about the impact of Delta on children.
There is nothing wrong with asking decent questions about the safety of families.
Her federal Labor colleagues see it differently.
I would be distancing myself from the comments of Anastasia.
The data shows very few kids get seriously sick from Delta, and in Australia, no child under 12 has died.
Most of the children, in fact most of the cases we're seeing in New South Wales, are minor illness.
Despite the concerns, National Cabinet is planning for the gradual reopening, developing detailed plans to ensure health systems already under pressure can cope when restrictions are eased.
Our systems in New South Wales are holding up incredibly well.
The extra Pfizer doses will accelerate the vaccine rollout. 37% of Australians aged over 16 have so far been fully vaccinated. The locked-down states and territories racing ahead of those living restriction-free. And the Prime Minister's put a new incentive on the table, suggesting the states that reach 80% vaccine coverage could reopen their international border before others. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
So they were up to date on that news, and right now let's also take a quick look at what's happening in Queensland. So the breaking news is that a new case has been detected in the community, and the information has come from Queensland. And a 4-year-old child has tested positive on 3rd September. The child attended the Boulevard Early Learning Centre, Mount Warren Park, which is 174 Mount Warren Road Boulevard, on Tuesday, 31st August and Wednesday, 1st September. Children, staff and visitors to this centre should immediately come forward and get tested, then quarantine at their home with their household members for 14 days, regardless of a negative result. Children from this centre also attended outside school hours care at Windaroo State School. All students, staff and visitors who attended Windaroo State School on Tuesday 31st August to Friday 3rd September and their household members should quarantine for 14 days. So here's that report that has come in now from Queensland Health. Well, right now, there are so many questions about this COVID-19 and the vaccinations. Let's look at some of those questions.
Every day we get hundreds of questions from our audience across the country about coronavirus, the vaccine and what the future looks like. Today we're going to look at a few of our most asked questions and get the answers from experts we've spoken to throughout the week. The first one is about immunity and booster shots. How long are you protected for after being fully vaccinated? Epidemiologist from the University of New South Wales, Mary Louise McLaws, explains.
There's been a very good study looking at neutralising antibodies by Miles Davenport from the University of New South Wales, and his study shows that about the high vaccine efficacy of, say, Pfizer, you're protected by about 8 months, and then for a slightly lower efficacy of AstraZeneca, by about 6 months you need a booster. And in fact, that's been played out very accurately in Israel, where they started to see breakthrough infections. And they were in, of course, people that had 2 doses and sometimes none, but in the elderly. And now Israel's rolled out a booster shot, and they started from the elderly because they were vaccinated back in December. So they started to lose their protection, and now they're up to about the 50 years of age group, and we will now start to have to think about vaccinating our elderly in about October, again with a booster.
We hear a lot about vaccines, but what treatment is there for people who get COVID and end up in hospital, and what sort of drugs are available to them? Infectious diseases expert Dr. Nick Coatsworth is a former Deputy Chief Medical Officer, and he answered that for us.
We're learning more and more in the past 18 months about how to effectively treat COVID-19. One of the mainstays of treatment is a really simple drug called dexamethasone. It's a steroid, and accompanied with some of the newer drugs. The idea is that you're switching off the inflammation, because it's not actually the virus, it's the inflammatory response that tries to clear the virus from the body that causes so much lung damage and puts people into respiratory failure. So you come into hospital, you get oxygen, and pretty much as soon as you're getting the oxygen, you're getting the steroid, you're getting the other newer anti-inflammatory agent. And there is a new drug now called sotrovimab, which has just come into the National Medical Stockpile, which is also a welcome addition to our COVID-19 treatment and is usually used for patients who are at risk of getting into hospital and intensive care, but who may benefit from early treatment. And that's been distributed around the country this week.
From treatments that work to those that don't. This week, a Sydney man who had been infected with coronavirus overdosed on an unproven COVID treatment. What is ivermectin? Brendan Crabb from the Burnet Institute explains.
Ivermectin, the drug in question, is a fabulous antiparasitic drug, both for animals and humans. But of course, COVID is caused by a virus that's very different to a parasite. This antiparasitic drug does not work against the virus. What happened in the early days of COVID was a lot of existing drugs for all sorts of things were tested against the virus. And a few of them, hydroxychloroquine was a famous one, ivermectin was another, took off in folklore rather than in reality as effective. And of course, that hasn't stood up against any formal clinical trial. They're not effective against COVID. Either hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. They're dangerous to take in the wrong doses anyway. So please avoid them. Vaccines are, at the moment, our exit plan. This is the way to get protected. You know, even in Victoria, in the small number of cases we're seeing in hospitals at the moment, they're nearly all in people who are unvaccinated. It's incredibly powerful, the tool of vaccination. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine simply do not work.
Another common question is about long COVID and whether you can get it once you're vaccinated. Here's Mary Louise McLaws again.
It's probably less likely. Long COVID is more likely with hospitalised patients because they've got very severe infection. However, that could be due to what we call bias, follow-up bias, where most hospitalised patients are followed up much better than non-hospitalised patients. So I'll just remind you that in the UK, little kids are getting long COVID, and there's over 3,000 kids who are members of long COVID kids. And so it's not always those that are hospitalised, but if you get an infection after being vaccinated with one dose or potentially two, it's more likely you'll have a milder infection.
And if you were to have long COVID, could your symptoms ease if you then have a vaccination?
Well, that's interesting because that's what they're starting to look at, is that impact of vaccination as well. So it's a real-world learning experiment, and it looks like that could be the case.
The importance of getting vaccinated has been laid bare this week as infections soar on the East Coast. One of the biggest questions the ABC receives is how quickly Australia could get to the vaccine targets set by National Cabinet to trigger the next phase in the COVID response. ABC analyst Casey Briggs crunches the numbers.
This is one of the most common questions I'm getting now, that our freedoms are explicitly tied to vaccination targets, and it's the way out of the lockdowns that so many Australians are still living through. When are we going to get to these vaccine targets? These are Thursday's vaccine figures. They're increasing by up to a percentage point each day, but about 3 in 5 Australians over 16 have now had their first dose of a vaccine. Of course, the pace has been varying pretty dramatically between states. New South Wales has cracked the 70% threshold on first doses. Victoria is just under 60% on the current figures. You'd expect Victoria to get to 70% on first doses by about September 19 or 20. Now that might well speed up, more on that in a second. We've got the ACT on about 67%. They should hit first doses of 70% next week. Of course, that's just first doses. Phases B and C of the national plan, they're talking about the double dose vaccination rate. And so what we can consider once we get to first doses is how long does it take those first doses to become second doses? What's the interval between doses? And that does vary at the moment per state because different states are administering AstraZeneca and Pfizer on different intervals. In New South Wales at the moment, it's about maybe 36 days between first and second doses. In the other states, it's more like 45 to 55 days, depending on the state. But I think those intervals are going to come down as we start to get a flood of Pfizer coming into the country. And what we're seeing is, a bit of a levelling out at the moment, 277,000 doses on average going into arms. But now we have the news that 4 million doses are coming from the United Kingdom in a dose swap, and that is going to boost the number of doses.
So that is good news that it is the dose is coming. Well, right now let's take a very quick look at a message from our sponsors.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Asha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is there well, and don't forget that on every Wednesday we have the real estate update right here with Usha Chandra of GlobeNet Realty providing all the updates. Well, right now it's time to go to our daily India report, and with that let's welcome to Ankita.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, India has put travellers from China and 6 more countries on the caution list due to a new variant of COVID-19 in Colombia and some countries of South America. India has added 7 new countries on the caution list after reports of a new MU variant of COVID-19 in Colombia and other South American countries. Passengers from these countries will be required to undergo a pre-arrival RT-PCR testing at least 72 hours before boarding to travel to India. The list of countries includes South Africa, Bangladesh, Botswana, China, Mauritius, New Zealand and Zimbabwe. Already on the list are the United Kingdom, Europe and the Middle East countries. The World Health Organization in its weekly bulletin designated the MU strain first detected in Colombia as a variant of interest. The WHO has warned that this variant shows signs of possible resistance to vaccines. Fortunately, India has so far not detected any case of MU variant, but it is on the radar of the government. The MU variant has a constellation of mutations that indicate potential properties of immune escape. Since the first identification in Colombia, there have been a few sporadic reports of cases and some larger outbreaks in South America and Europe. The Taliban announced the formation of a formal government in war-torn Afghanistan on 3rd September 2021. Just 2 weeks after entering the capital city of Kabul and forcibly seizing power from the Ashraf Ghani government, the Taliban may announce the formation of a government on 3rd September 2021. According to sources, Taliban co-founder Mullah Baradar will lead the new Afghan government. Mullah Muhammad Yaqub, the son of late Taliban founder Mullah Omar, and Sher Mohammad Abbas Tanikzai will take senior positions in the government. Haibatullah Akhundzada, the Taliban supreme religious leader, will focus on religious matters and governance within the framework of Islam. Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid has said that the new government in Afghanistan will be without female ministers. Women can, however, work in ministries, police and courts as assistants. Mujahid said that they would like to create a lean government with only half the number of previous ministries. As for international ties, the Taliban sees China as the main partner that is ready to invest in Afghanistan and rebuild the country. The Taliban took over Kabul on August 15th, and since then many countries have evacuated their embassies and diplomatic staff. Some nations opted to relocate their diplomatic missions to safer, nearby states such as Turkey or Qatar. The embassies of Russia and China continue to operate in Kabul. The Taliban now looks forward to governing a nation that relies heavily on international aid and is reeling under an economic crisis. India says that almost all of its nationals who wanted to leave Afghanistan have been evacuated. The Indian government said that the vast majority of its nationals who wanted to leave Afghanistan have been evacuated and there are very few Indians left in the strife-torn country. Indian government is in touch with those who didn't wish to leave immediately. A Ministry of External Affairs officials said that India will continue to explore ways to evacuate its nationals from Kabul, but it depends on how soon the Hamid Karzai International Airport is opened for commercial flights. The Indian government Special Afghanistan Cell continues to operate and has been in touch with Indians in Afghanistan. World Punjabi Organization President Vikramjit S. Sahane said the Taliban have assured safe passage to Afghan Sikh wanting to travel to India. This was discussed in the meeting between India's ambassador in Qatar, Deepak Mittal, and the head of Taliban's political officer, Sher Mohammad Abbas Tanekzai. Sahane also said that his organization is in touch with India's foreign ministry over the remaining Sikhs and Hindus in Afghanistan, and an evacuation plan is being chalked out in the next 10 days or so. Reports suggest only 20 Indian nationals still remain in Afghanistan. Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla called on US Secretary of State Antony Blinken to discuss Afghanistan and bilateral ties. Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla called on the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken on 2nd September 2021 in Washington, D.C. to discuss important bilateral issues and the situation in Afghanistan. Shringla also met US Deputy Secretary Wendy Sherman for substantive discussions on advancing the Indo-US strategic partnership. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said Shringla and Sherman discussed a broad range of shared priorities, including continued coordination on Afghanistan, strengthening Indo-Pacific cooperation through the Quad, addressing the climate crisis, COVID-19 pandemic, and preparations for upcoming dialogues such as the 2+2 ministerial. The two diplomats agreed to remain closely coordinated on shared goals and priorities. This was the first high-level discussion between the officials of the two countries after the American withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan on August 31st. India has extended visas of all foreign nationals stuck due to COVID-19. There is no penalty and exit visas can be filed and procured online. India has extended visa until 30th September for all foreign nationals stranded in India due to lack of flights following COVID-19. India's Home Ministry said that such foreign nationals will not be required to submit an application to the concerned FRRO for extension of visas. Before exiting the country, they may apply online for an exit permission on EFRRO portal, which would be granted by the FRRO concerned without fee or overstay penalty. The Home Ministry also said that all Afghan nationals in India under any category of visa will be granted an extension of visa under guidelines issued separately for them. Earlier, India had facilitated the stay of such foreign nationals within India by giving deemed extension of their visas without levy of any overstay penalty till August 31st. The government also said that if someone wanted visa extension beyond 30th September, they may apply on the online EFRRO platform on a payment basis, which would be considered by the authorities subject to the eligibility as per the guidelines. With many religious festivals in the upcoming months and COVID-19 cases rising in certain parts of India, the government has cautioned against mass congregations. As daily COVID-19 cases continue to spike during the last week or more, and with the season of festivals fast approaching, India has cautioned the public against mass congregations. Health Ministry officials said that mass gatherings should be discouraged and full vaccination should become a priority, particularly in the upcoming festive season. They urged people to celebrate festivals like Ganesh Chaturthi, Navratri, Eid, etc. within their homes. Meanwhile, the officials informed that 16% of the total adult population of this country has been fully vaccinated, while 54% have received at least one shot. On authorizing booster shots of COVID-19 vaccines, the Indian government said that the World Health Organization had so far not given any recommendation on the issue. Here's a special one-of-a-kind multilingual treat from Bollywood. Taapsee Pannu and Vijay Sethupathi starrer Annabel Sethupathi is set to release in Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Malayalam and Kannada on Disney Plus Hotstar. Let's take a look at the trailer of this horror comedy. The trailer for Vijay Sethupathi and Taapsee Pannu starrer Annabel Sethupathi is out. The film is a typical horror comedy. It's got it all. A haunted house, possible reincarnation and antics from a bunch of ghosts. King Rathore, essayed by Vijay, commissions a palace for his fiancée Annabel, essayed by Taapsee. It is built by skilled architects from 8 countries, each making a different section, creating a masterpiece. Impressed by the palace, a rich man played by Jagpati Babu wants to purchase it. But the king says the palace is a mark of his love for Annabel and not for sale. Decades later, in 2021, a young woman resembling Annabel decides to move into the palace, which is rumored to be haunted. That turns out to be true, but the ghosts seem to be well-meaning, trapped in the abandoned house. Taapsee's modern character befriends the ghosts, and the rest of the film is a comedy of errors. One of the ghosts, Yogi Babu, informs the others that the new tenant is the key to their freedom. The trailer ends with Yogi Babu's character saying, "Who makes new stories these days? Old stories are recycled and served. What can I do?" Annabel Sethupathi is set to release in various languages: Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Malayalam and Kannada. Directed by Deepak Sundarajan, the film is scheduled to release on 17th September on Disney Plus Hotstar. The film's Hindi version has been titled Annabel Rathore. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And thank you very much, Ankita. And that Daily India Report, remember Daily India Report, we bring to you from Tuesday through till Saturday. Well, right now it's time to take a look at some of the functions and events that are taking place. And let's look at, well, first of all, I'd like to let you all know that at 10 a.m., we have this month's episode of Your Health, meaning Aapka Sehat, and the guest is Dr. Abha, and she has some excellent conversation with Dr. Cheryl Fernandez, especially on women's health and those kind of topics. Next up, we look at the mega function happening today, Arpan, which is by Nritya Bharatiya School of Kathak. And of course, the other sold out function, both of these functions are sold out. This sold out function is Bollywood, which has been supported by us, and the Indo-Fijian and the Fusion night supported by the Brisbane Rotary Club International. And of course, Mums United Seva Group and their pledge for donations as their project, which is a very, very important project, feeding the homeless. Sangeet Premi Club presents an interfaith music festival of bhajans, kirtan, Sufi, Qawwali and all devotional. This will be on 9th of October at Acacia Ridge State School in Ningham Street in Acacia Ridge. Well, of course, the musical night of Sargam Music Academy is now happening on the 13th of November. Well, if you're into brekkie, Sket's brekkie is being offered there at a very reasonable price, and they also would like to, make everyone aware of the 4th September, which is today, the free event which is happening from 4 p.m. The Puja and Abhishekam. Next up, Navratri, the Rudra Abhishekam, which will be on October 10th, Runcorn State High School, 200 Nimis Road. And Simply Human Incorporated presents Superheroes Without Capes, now on a new date of 9th October. Banyo Diwali is now taking place on the 30th of October, and we'd like to see everyone there. And while we're talking about that, the biggest the Diwali, the Federation of Indian Communities of Queensland, the Diwali will be on 5th of November. And know your idea, let the world know about your idea of India. Submit your entries at the online digital painting and poster making concept. Here's the link at the bottom, but you can come onto our website or our Facebook page of Australian Indian Radio, and you can look at this while you lodge in your applications as well. And of course, as part of that, there's an essay competition which is happening as well. If you'd like to take part in that, this is part of Azadi Ka Amrit Maha Utsav. And as part of the India at 75, the Hindi Divas celebrations of High Commission of Canberra is organizing an online Hindi quiz through the social media platforms. Last date of entry is the 14th of September. Please make sure that you do, if you like to, lodge your applications for that as well. Well, right now, last but not the least, we'll talk about India Day Fair. Well, India Day Fair, as we know now, is on the revised date of 23rd of October, the 75 years of Indian independence, happening at the South Bank Piazza. We'd like to see you all there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for in this segment. Don't forget that we will be coming back with this month's episode of Aapka Sehat back in half an hour right here on this channel. Until that time, it's goodbye from me.